was still the first day of the week. That evening, while the disciples were behind closed doors because they were afraid of the Jewish authorities, Jesus came to them and stood among them. He said, "Peace be with you." After he said this, he showed them his hands and his side. When the disciples saw the Lord, they were filled with joy. Jesus said to them again, "Peace be with you. As the Father sent me, so am I sending you." Then he breathed on them and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive anyone's sins, they will be forgiven. If you don't forgive them, they aren't forgiven." Now Thomas had not been in the room when Jesus appeared to his disciples. The others told him, "We have seen the Lord." Thomas did not believe him. "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my fingers where the nails were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe," Thomas insisted. A week later, the disciples were in the house again, and this time Thomas was with them. The doors were locked. Suddenly, Jesus appeared and stood among them. "Peace be with you," said Jesus. Jesus then said to Thomas, "Put your fingers here. See my hands." Jesus continued, "Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas exclaimed, "My Lord, my God." Then Jesus told Thomas, "You believe because you have seen me. Happy are those who have not seen me and yet believe."
Thank you for that gospel reading. And as we sort of engage the word in a different way, a way that honors pastor's time at Easter when things are so busy, and in a way that is able to sort of get to know our high school graduates a little bit. I invite Gavin to come forward. Have a seat up here. We're going to have a little chat. And then afterwards, Pastor Joe will be talking with Aizhan Etchison. So this is Gavin Stanley. Hi, Gavin.
Hi.
Yeah, we practiced this on Thursday, and I was like, I'm ready. I'm ready for the deadpan. This is going to be great. So I want to note, first of all, that when I started working here, it was about 18 months ago, I think you were probably the first family, one of the first families that joined Markham Woods right after I started. So one of the first pictures I took, and I meant to send it to Kara, was a picture of you all out by the oak tree. And that was when you all joined the church. So I kind of feel like we're on the journey together here at Markham Woods. So I'll start off with some get-to-know-you kind of questions, because I feel like, you know, we're still getting to know the church, and they're still getting to know us, too. So where do you go to school?
Groom's Academy of Information Technology.
Crooms Academy of Information Technology. That sounds pretty fancy. But what areas of study do you enjoy?
Film, creative writing.
Film and creative writing. Excellent, excellent. Are there any classes that you don't like to take?
Math.
Math. All right, we've got that established. How about some favorites? What do you like as far as maybe a book, a TV show, a video game, a movie?
Well, book-wise, I like American Gods.
American Gods. Is that sci-fi?
It's in the title. It's supernatural.
Supernatural, there you go. So you're in the right place being in church then. Excellent, excellent. A lot of people are talking about Avengers Endgame. Have you seen it yet? No spoilers.
I ruined it for myself. I won't ruin it for anyone else.
All right, very good. Well, I was called blasphemous today by people that will remain unnamed because I haven't seen any of them yet. So, yeah, it's terrible. I'm a non-Avenger. So maybe you can catch me up on some of these. So what has been most meaningful for you in this brief time that you've been at Markham Woods?
Well, the fact that everybody seems to care about everyone and reconnecting with people that I thought I'd lost forever.
Well, that's cool, being able to reconnect. So, you know, we are here about making sure that we are growing the faith of the whole family of God, and part of that is establishing some connections with folks, and so it's nice that you're able to reconnect with old friends here. So that gives me joy too. Well, I thought it would be interesting to look at this gospel lesson that we just saw and heard on the screen here and sort of see how it affects our journey of faith, and yours in particular, but really of the whole congregation. So how familiar are you with this story that we've heard about Jesus appearing to the disciples on the first day of the week?
Reasonably.
Reasonably. So hearing it just now, does anything stand out or make you wonder? Was there anything that make you said,
The fact that as soon as Thomas was given evidence, he believed and stopped doubting.
Yeah, so Thomas was this intriguing character. He speaks a couple of times in John's gospel prior to this event. Once when Jesus was going to Judea to bring his friend Lazarus back from the dead, Thomas said to his fellow disciples, he said, "Let us go too, so we can die with him." Do you know anyone with that kind of dedication to their friends that would be willing to die together?
Well, me and my friends, we compete on a lot of things that are kind of irrelevant, but the moment we realize there's a genuine problem, we all band together despite everything that's happened before.
That's cool to hear, Gavin. And I wonder about that today, like, in a world that seems oftentimes disconnected from each other, if those kind of friendship bonds, to the end are as robust as maybe they once were. So I'm getting a sense from your answer that indeed there's still a lot of folks who are willing to be tight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So later, Jesus is at the last meal with his friends, that one that we observed about 10 days ago. We call it Maundy Thursday. And there, after supper, after washing the disciples' feet as an example of service, Jesus talks to them a while in John's gospel. And among other things, he says to them, "Don't be troubled, trust in God, trust also in me. My Father's house has room to spare. If that weren't the case, would I have told you that I'm going to prepare a place for you?" And he says, "When I go to prepare a place for you, I will return and take you to be with me, so that where I am, you will be too." And then he finished with this curious phrase, "You know the place, or you know the way to the place I'm going." So Thomas asked him, "Lord, we don't know where you're going. How can we know the way?" And in that part of John's gospel, I hear Thomas being very practical. And I think he's sort of a present tense kind of thinker. And I wonder if that's something you can relate to.
I can relate to that.
And that same spirit is present with Thomas also when he returns to his friends in that room where they were hiding after Jesus died. Now remember, when we first saw them, Thomas was not there. It was a week later, and then Thomas shows up. One person I was reading about with this said, "Why was Thomas not there to begin with? Was he out getting groceries for everybody?" It's kind of a mystery, but it's one that's fun to think about. If you had been a follower of Jesus, how would you have reacted to his death? Might you be driven into hiding too?
I'd be sad and probably would hide, because same people who went after him probably would come after me also.
Yeah. And again, Thomas is very practical. He seems to be a scientific kind of guy. He says, as you mentioned, "Show me the evidence." And I wonder if you can relate to him in that way.
I've heard a lot of absurd things I didn't believe, but when I was presented evidence, I believed.
Yeah. I wonder if going to a technical academy has sort of reinforced that sort of mindset with you, or has that been with you all the time?
It's only reinforced it.
Yeah. Even though you gravitate more towards the film and creative aspects of education, instead of, when I think of something like, Croom's Academy, and it sounds very technical, I'm wondering if you might gravitate towards, science or something like that. How about science? Do you enjoy science classes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any particular area of science study that's your favorite?
They all have their merits.
Okay. So in this story, Jesus wants Thomas to touch his wounds. And at one point, he even says, put my hand or your hand into my side. And every time I see that, it's icky, it's gross, right? What do you do with that? But again, it sounds exactly like it's what Thomas needed. And what does that make you think about Jesus, that he would go that far?
Well, that to an extent, he's practical. He knew what he needed to do, and, well, he did it.
He's accommodating to Thomas's needs, right?
Yeah.
Willing to meet him where he is. I wonder if you think Jesus is okay with Thomas asking him questions.
He seems to be all right with it.
Yeah. How about us? Are we supposed to believe everything without asking some questions?
Not really, no.
So I wonder if you have any particular questions that you might ask Jesus.
There are way too many to ask.
You got that right. You might start with something practical. What might be a practical question? Maybe something about earth and creation that mystifies you, that you might ask Jesus to, hey, can you explain this? What's the deal?
Was evolution real?
Ah, that's a good one. I love that question, yeah. Because we hear in the Bible that it's a creation account, right? Yet we have the scientific gift from God, and we say, okay, evolution is something that's happened over time, and we have all the physical evidence. So how do we reconcile a creation story with scientific evidence, right? That's kind of the whole gist of Thomas and Jesus' conversation. So I find that very interesting too, and I'm glad you do as well. I wonder why this is something we had talked about Thursday, a particularly interesting question you asked me about why Bible stories and traditions maintain their power to captivate people. I don't know if you recall asking that question. I've kind of made it sound a little more flowery. But I think what I heard you asking is, why has the Bible and all the stories within it continue to maintain its hold on people, that it's such a powerful word to us today? And would you have any explanation for why that might be?
People either don't want and to change it, or it just simply is good enough as is.
Yeah. We only have another minute or two before I invite Pastor Joe and Aizhan up here, so just want to end with some closing questions. What are your next steps after high school?
Go to Seminole State College, do film there, possibly move up to UCF.
Okay, and I think we had talked about you prefer. There's this whole if you're in the geeky realm, you're either sci-fi or you're fantasy. You might like both, right? But there's never a 50-50 on this spectrum. I think you're either mostly a sci-fi fan or mostly a fantasy fan. And where do you fall on that spectrum?
I lean towards sci-fi, but I know enough fantasy to get by.
Yeah, know enough fantasy to get by. So at a conversation at a party, you'll be okay. Very good, very good. You going to go to Free Comic Book Day? It's Saturday, this Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So any comics in particular that you're going to be looking for?
No.
All right. Will you be saying, May the 4th be with you? Because that's what they say on May 4th, Free Comic Book Day.
You should really have to ask.
See, we didn't go over that question. I threw that one at the last minute. So I like your answer. And with that, I think we're good to say thank you, Gavin, and we all are very happy that you are here, and we hope that whatever happens with you after high school through college, that you'll continue to ask questions, continue to engage the Word, together with this community of faith that we call Markham Woods. Thank you. Okay, Pastor Joe and Aizhan will be up here in just a moment. First, we'll have a reading from the book of Acts.
Just then, someone arrived and announced, "Look, the people you put in prison are standing in the temple and teaching the people." Then the captain left with his guards and brought the apostles back. They didn't use force because they were afraid the people would stone them. The apostles were brought before the council, where the high priest confronted them. "In no uncertain terms, we demanded that you not teach in this name. And look at you, you have filled Jerusalem with your teaching, and you are determined to hold us responsible for this man's death." Peter and the apostles replied, "We must obey God rather than humans. The God of our ancestors raised Jesus from the dead, whom you killed by hanging him on a tree. God has exalted Jesus to his right side as leader and savior so that he could enable Israel to change its heart and life and find forgiveness for sins. We are witnesses of such things, as is the Holy Spirit whom God has given to those who obey him."
So, Aizhan, I'm going to start by, instead of introducing you, I'm going to introduce me to you right here. So, I'm very strange and very weird because I'm one of a few, because not many people were actually born in Florida, right? I'm actually a native Floridian, and there are very few. I think
Is this on?
It is on.
Oh,
so
okay.
There's very few of us around. So not only am I a native Floridian, I was born in Jacksonville, and in Jacksonville back when I was growing up was a very weird kind of city because it had people that were educated, but it had other folks that were sort of country. As a matter of fact, the band Leonard Skinner came from the west side of Jacksonville. So that's all preface to this. When I was growing up, if somebody was called Aizhan, we would say, "You ain't from around here, are you?" Right? So with a name like Aizhan, I'm native Floridian, so tell me a bit about your name and what that means for you.
Like, do you want to know what my name means or where it came from?
Yes.
All right. My name means the soul of the moon, and I was born in Kazakhstan. That's under Russia, next to China. Okay, that's it.
And you came here, about how old were you when you got here?
4.
So 4 years old. So 4 years old, you came from a completely different country across the Atlantic Ocean, and that makes you very normal here because most people aren't born here either. So just wanted to let you know you're very normal for folks that come to Florida. So you came at 4 years old. What did you know about the United States?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. I didn't know anything.
Yeah. And you came into this place. Did you speak English?
No.
No English at all?
No English.
Wow. Okay. So you come into this country, it's kind of different. You're a little girl, you're growing up, you don't know much English. So let's fast forward a bit. You get introduced to this church and to this student ministry, and you've been very involved the whole time you've been here. Tell me a bit about what you understood about God before you got here and how you think about God now.
I didn't know about God before I got here. But when I got here, I heard of him, but I wasn't really like believing in him because for how I believe stuff is like if you like show a sign, if you show that you're real, then I'm believe you. But other than that, I didn't know. And so when I got to the student ministry, I was really awkward. I was like, I didn't talk to nobody, only one person, that was Linda. And then she got me into it, and I met Shelby. Where is she? Oh,
She's
hi,
here.
Shelby.
Yeah.
And I met Shelby, and then she was like really kind, like introduced me to everybody, and that's how it first started. And now I believe him a lot because he showed a lot of signs and he was there for me when no one else was.
Right. So let's talk about that a little bit. I know everybody grows up and we deal with the world and we deal with things that come at us. In some ways, you had a bit of a climb, right? You're coming from a different country, different language. You're growing up here. You never heard about God before much at all, and all of a sudden now you're hearing all these things. So that can rock your world a little bit. So has your world gotten rocked a little bit, and how in that your world kind of getting shook? How do you see God playing a role in your life?
Like from now, or how it all started?
Wherever you want to pick up.
So from the very beginning, my birth parents left me. They didn't really care about me. And, I'm about to cry.
Well, you don't have to say that if you don't want.
Well, it's just,
Okay.
it's touching. It's like, that's the main things. And the only, so I was abandoned. I didn't know anything. And so the reason why, I think there was a sign that God was telling me I have like another life in. Another life is because when I fell, I had went to a hospital. And I still have a scar on my head. And from there, that's where my mom came into my life, and she saved me. So that's one big reason. And then ever since then, she's the only person who really cared for me the most, her and God. And if it wasn't for her, I'd be dead from this day. And the second reason?
Well, I just wondered, kind of growing up, once you got here, things haven't always been easy, have they? And
No,
things they haven't always gone really smoothly. And like anybody, like any teenager, sometimes troubles come, right? And do you want to talk about some of those troubles and how you think that was? You talked to me a little bit about how you see God helping you through that very trouble.
Yeah. I was good like in elementary school, but then when I got to middle school, I hung out around people. I started like getting kicked out of class and almost got expelled my 7th grade year. And I started like skipping class, and I guess you could kind of say like smoke, I guess. It was bad, but in the 9th grade year, that's when everything just like ruined it. Like my whole life was like at a stop, to be honest. Because then my mom, she was really worried, so she had got in contact with her friend, and then so I had like a probation officer from then. And then we got into it, and I put my hands on her, then lied to the police, so I got arrested. And I was supposed to be there for I don't know how long, but then I guess you bailed me out or something like that. I don't know what you did. But when I was in the handcuffs in the car in the back, I was just like, I was crying because all of my emotions, it's like, wow, like if I keep on doing this, I will be in jail for longer. I wouldn't want to be where I grow up. I wouldn't be here. And when I was in the cell, like taking a picture and all that, it's just like, wow. And then God just like was there. He was like, because I was like calm in the cell, and he was like, I felt like, to be honest, I felt like he was talking to me in my head, but I wasn't really believing. I was like, oh, it's just like a little like voice in my head. That's just me thinking something. And I heard a little bit. He was like, you have another chance. I believe in you. There's something that's really good in you. And so when I got out, my whole entire life changed. Like I'm taking AP classes and everything. I'm working with the special needs kids at school. I took sign language for 3 years. Been making honor roll for 2 years and made principal's honor roll with a 4.1. And it's just everything changed because he was right there. He didn't stop believing me. He knew something was good, so he just kept on going and telling me like, oh, you could do it, even though if I try to give up. And he was like, no. And so I just kept pushing it and pushing it, and now here I am.
So I think that's, believe it or not, because I'm the pastor and pastors know things about lots of different people, life is not always easy. As a matter of fact, everybody in here has had a struggle. And many of us, even as youth or even some of the youth in the church, they all have struggles like you went through. And what's cool is that you were able to let God speak to you. I think God speaks to lots of folks through their thoughts, like for you. But the difference is you listened and you did something about it, and your life has taken a different track. You talked about the increase in grades, the service to others, trying to help others. So what would you say has been the biggest difference that understanding Jesus, who Jesus is, and Jesus' love for you, what do you think is the biggest difference that makes for you right now?
Like, what do you mean?
In your life? Just kind of a relationship with Jesus. What does that mean? What difference is that making for you?
I don't understand what you mean. Like, I kind of understand what you mean, but I kind of don't. Like what he's done for me right now?
Yes.
Oh, all right. I'm
Hold that a
sorry.
little closer, though, if you would.
Oh,
Okay.
all right. I'm sorry about that. The difference he made in I keep snapping. Okay, difference he made in me right now is having like it's a lot.
You have the mic.
All right. Difference he made from me from now and back then.
Yeah, just right now.
I have a closer relationship with my mom. That's a big step, a
Right.
big one. Because back then I'll be real with you. I didn't like you back then. Like you were always on me, and that's why I guess because I was like mean to you, kept pushing you away. Because I thought you like if I kept pushing you away, you'll leave me like what my birth mom did. So that's why I kept pushing you away. But now it's just like I sometimes call you like my twin because we're just alike. We goof around and everything. That's a closer relationship I got with you. At school, with the mentors or the guidance, like they never gave up on me. And I didn't like them because they said like, oh, you need to be in class. I was like, no, I don't need to be in class. There's no point in being in class for him. And roaming around the halls and everything. But now like they want me to like speak to the ninth graders now. They want me to like help them. Like I walk into classes, like they're like, oh, walk into this class and like help them. And so I speak to some of the ninth graders, and I speak to some of the juniors too. And I asked them, I'm like, why you want me to speak to them? They're like, because you're like the one who made a 180 at the school, like the one dean said that. He was like, I heard about you everywhere. Like, you're one who only made a 180. You switched from being a bad person, because I had the most referrals 10th grade year, and the most tardies. I had like over 50 tardies and over 30 referrals. Almost got expelled for doing something stupid.
So
And
would you say that would you say that your relation? I don't want to give you these words. I'm just asking.
Yes, it's been good.
Would you say your relationship with Jesus
Yes.
is that what's helped make that change that people see in you?
Yes.
Okay,
Because back then I didn't believe in him.
great. So I will tell you something about Aizhan. Aizhan is what we call the stump the pastor kid, right? Because every Sunday, just about, Aizhan will come up to me and she'll have the stump the pastor question, like explain the Trinity, explain heaven, explain, she wants to, so you've always asked me really good and hard questions, and I usually say to you, boy, that's a harder question than just one sentence, right? I've always said there's more to it than that. So, of all the questions that you've asked me, why don't you share one answer that you found since you've been at Markham Woods? Just one answer about God, one answer about one of your questions. Any of your questions you've had, have you found an answer? And if so, could you share any of that? I know I didn't tell you I was going to ask that question.
I thought you would know the answers.
What have you learned? Any of the things you've ever wondered? Tell me one thing that's been important to you that you've learned about God.
It's a few.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of one
course.
because you never even told me this. You didn't say you wanted.
That's okay. What have you learned about how God deals with people? Is God aloof? Is God close by? Like Pastor Jody was talking about.
He's always there.
He's always there. So you've learned that even though people think of God way up high in some cloudy place, right? He's closer than that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he's closer. He's in your heart.
And what difference has that made for you?
If, like, when I got close to him, like, good things start happening. But when I stopped believing him and I didn't talk to him or pray or anything, it's like I felt like bad things were about to happen.
Right.
because back then I didn't pray or anything, and now I like sometimes pray. I read a Bible. Yes, Mama, I read the Bible sometimes. And
All right,
I
great.
believe in him, and it's like good things like, okay, like, look, oh, this happened out of nowhere, and like things like I go out of my way that I wouldn't usually do.
Right.
And it's like, okay, good things, like you do this. And,
Great.
Yeah.
So Jody asked questions about future. So a little quick, what's your future looking like now?
Occupational therapy.
Okay. You're going to
That's
work on
one-
Pastor Joe's neck?
Do
I got
you
a
need to
bad
be
neck,
worked
you know.
on?
Yeah, I need work, so yeah.
You could get a massage for that.
I had one Friday, believe me. Okay. Well, anything else you'd like to say before we close up?
Can I ask you a question?
Oh my gosh.
Well, look, I just want one question. There's one question.
You can ask the question.
Well, because you asked me, how did God change in your life? I
Yeah.
just want to know that.
How did God change my life?
Yeah.
I think I'm much like you. I think I was hearing not voices, but thoughts in my head that said, I have something special for you. And then there were people were placed in my life that it seemed helped me along, like you've talked about here. People have been placed like Shelby and Bo and Melinda. These people have been placed in your life to help you along. They helped me along. And as they helped me along, like you, I discovered that I had much more in me than I thought. I was not a good student like you at one point, and I turned around and became a very good student. So our stories, although, like I said, they wouldn't have named me Aizhan because I was born in Jacksonville, we share a similar story. So much like you, I listened, and I liked what I heard, and so I took those steps just like you're taking. That's my story.
Dang.
Okay.
That's good.
Thank you.